All right. Great pleasure to be here with a great friend. Well, thank you everyone for joining like almost the last session of the day. It's remarkable that you all made it far to this point. And I think the entire day we heard about a lot of companies sitting here and telling us how about they're going to change the world, right, in different ways, different sectors, different industries. Now we're talking about someone probably helping us solving the biggest challenge of our century, which is climate change. And we're going to talk about carbon removal with Johannes, which is like a rising star in our portfolio in the climate tech space. Maybe before starting, like a few words about Ace Ventures. So Ace Ventures, venture business of Ace & Company. We've been investing for the past 15 years, early stage, across different geographies, across different sectors. And today we manage 500 million, more or less, across different funds and mandates. Earlier this year, we have launched Ace with Tech Outliers, which is our latest baby, our latest product. And with this fund, we want to double down on Swiss technology founders. Climate tech is a big part of the fund. More than 30% of the fund, in fact, will be dedicated to climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation topics. And yeah, it's great to be here and sharing the stage with Johannes. Johannes, you want to tell us a bit more about yourself and Neustark?
Yeah, it's also, thanks, Ale. It's also a great pleasure to be here. So my name is Johannes. I'm actually the co-founder and co-CEO of Neustark. And let me share a bit the story how I came across this topic. So first, at Neustark, we remove CO2 from the atmosphere and then store it permanently in demolition concrete. And back in 2016, I came across for the first time the technology carbon capture and storage as a solution for industrial emissions, but also to generate negative emissions. And this was just after the Paris Agreement. And I would say from a scientific perspective, it was quite clear that we need such solutions. But on the market side, actually, would say nothing was happening. So there was no market and no one was trying to build a business based on these technologies. So I think this was actually a crazy entrepreneurial problem, which I would say needed new minds to actually attack that. And I think the only way to actually bring solutions to the market is really to do it as an entrepreneur, as a startup, because then you have this single focus on making, in this case, climate impact a success. And I would say that's also our philosophy with Neustark. We want to generate climate impact, and climate impact only comes when you have a business which is profitable enough that the industry will adapt it quickly such that you can grow rapidly.
Thank you. And actually, I think you mentioned something really important before, which is the concept of negative emissions, right? Negative emission, how does this ties to having a net positive impacts on the environment? Can you tell us maybe a bit more about how you deliver that by selling CDR credits?
Yeah, so I mean, our business is generating negative emissions, and how we do that is that we first partner up with the concrete recycling industry, and their business is taking in demolishing concrete from old structures, crushing it, and selling it back to the market as sand and aggregate replacement. And we partner up with them. We basically sell them a CO2 storage plant. That's an investment of typically €500,000 to €1 million. And afterwards, we enter with them a long-term partnership over many, many years where we manage the CO2 supply. So we take CO2 from biogas plants, deliver it, take care of monitoring, reporting, verification, issue gold standard credits, and we also bring the customer, which are usually large corporates like UBS, Microsoft, which then purchase these credits. And today we have 12 plants in operation which deliver climate impact, so 12 commercial scale plants in Switzerland and in Germany.
That's great. And so maybe you want to tell us how do you make money with this business model? I think this is a question that might be interesting for the audience.
Yeah, so I would say we have 2 points in time where we earn something. The first one is when we sell the plant. They're a typical, I would say, plant manufacturer and have a typical margin on this business. And then the second point in time is these recurring revenues from our operations. So basically we deliver the CO2, right, and sell the credit, and we have a margin on this credit, and the rest, the The other part of the credit is actually used to finance the CO2 supply and also to pay the recycler to fix the CO2. So we have this one-off income and then the annually recurring revenues, which are very significant for these industrial scale operations.
And I think we covered quite a bit on the concrete recyclers. So I would love, or maybe you can tell the audience a bit about what is the incentive from the biogas plants, for instance, and the CDR buyers in partnering with you and becoming your customers. Why are they incentivized on the biogas hand to, like, you know, give the carbon to you to get stored, and what is the incentive from the CDR buyers to become your customer?
So the customer is always the one paying in the end for the climate impact, and the credit is just a way to basically, I would say, create trust around the climate impact. So the customer is usually a large corporate. They have net zero commitments, and they usually fulfill that by having a clear strategy to reduce emissions on the one hand, and then they have non-avoidable emissions they address with carbon removal technologies. And they're a part of these actually use high-quality carbon dioxide removal technologies like we do, and high quality means nothing else. The CO2, as soon as it's stored, it stays there forever, and they don't have to worry in the future about that. So the incentive for them partnering up with Neustark is that they get climate impact today, and they help also growing this industry such that in 2050, when we need to have this industry at gigaton scale, and they need to actually purchase these credits, they are there. So I would say that's the main incentive. The biogas plant, on the other hand, they have a waste stream. They have CO2 which is emitted, earning zero today, and for them we are a business opportunity. We basically valorize their waste stream, and so they can earn a bit more, and the same is true for the recycler. So the main incentive for the recycler is not being greener, but they generate profit, and for a recycler it's very significant. So their margin is so low that actually our solution can increase their EBIT by 50%.
Wow. And maybe moving a little bit towards like some more philosophical question. I think we have all followed COP28 this year in Dubai and listening to the different talks, how we are going to address climate change as a problem, right? And I think the UN IPCC for the first time recognized the importance of carbon removal in order for the world to get there, to net zero by 2050. So how do you see, by being someone that actually operates in the carbon removal space, how do you see carbon removal playing with emission reduction initiatives? Do you see your company as a competitor to this, or like, you know, working hand in hand?
I think it's purely an economic optimization. So as long, I would say the aim is net zero, so we have to either not emit or remove. And in most cases, removing comes just at reducing comes at a much lower cost than removing. And for this reason, there is kind of this, I would say, natural distribution of reducing 80–90% of the emissions and tackling the rest with negative emission technologies. I think actually removal technologies also have an additional role. So if we as a humankind are not fast enough in reducing, we can kind of turn the clock a bit back by removing a bit more, but we really should not rely on that, because that's going to be very expensive.
Very well said. We have a few seconds left, so maybe one last question. So what's coming up for Neustark? What's the plan the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, conquer the world of concrete recyclers. So
we are hoping so too.
No, our very specific plan is that we actually have now the Swiss blueprint, like one storage cluster in place, and in the next 2 years we want to build 20 such storage clusters, reaching a removal capacity of 100,000 tons end of 2025 in Europe, the US, and then we expand from there by putting more and more plants into the same cluster, ramping up to a megaton in 2030.
All right. Thank you very much, Johannes, and thank you everyone for listening to us.
Thanks a lot.